All right, hi everybody, welcome back. We're here for another hour of Wrestling with Wrestling. It's me, Steve, and joining me as always, my co-host, the great Doc Gregory.
Hello, everybody.
We're gonna get to talking about Raw last night and WWE continuing to head into WrestleMania and everything that's going on. The show, what we thought of the show last night, but um, I wanted to talk first for a few minutes about a show that they actually put on the WWE Network last week. It was their first big live event, sort of like a rehearsal for their live WrestleMania stream on the network coming up in a few weeks. And that was the NXT show, the big NXT, not really a pay-per-view, but kind of like a pay-per-view, called NXT Arrival. I watched that. I watched it live as it happened, and I thought that it was just I thought that it was just amazing. I thought that it was such a great show. The opening match, the Cesaro versus Sami Zayn match was just incredible. One of the best matches I've seen. I would say other than the Wyatts versus Shield 6-man from Elimination Chamber, I think that's the best match I've seen this year so far. Uh, and nothing else on the show was bad. Like, there was other stuff on the show that was good. I thought the main event was good. I thought the Divas match was good, but that Cesaro Zayn match just blew me away. So, Doc, what did you think of Arrival?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if your main event was a ladder match for your NXT championship. That it almost reminded me of like an old school Saturday night's main event where they put the best match on first.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely the best match. And everybody's screaming now to have Sami Zayn come up to the main roster, and that'll probably happen pretty soon because of just the simple ability that man has, and being able to shine with someone like Cesaro, who everybody ultimately respects these days as well. They've recognized his talent. Yeah, I thought that was really good, and they had their filler matches. I wasn't really big on C.J. Parker and Mojo Rawlings or Raleigh, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
See NXT. I was a virgin, so I'd heard these names and I'd heard about them, but I had never actually seen a lot of them in action. So it was a jaw-dropping experience for me, and it gives me hope that breeze that you're feeling, that wind that's coming in, that wind of change, it's here, and it's just biding your time and paying your dues and taking your lumps, and then you come. Hopefully, a lot of those people will make it up to the main roster. Yeah, I wasn't big on that first filler match, the Emma versus Paige. Paige. I keep calling her Paige. Yeah, that's right,
Yeah,
Paige.
Emma and
Yeah.
Paige. Yeah.
I don't know why. That for the next couple of days, I kept calling her Rain. That's it. I kept calling her Rain.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why. But, yeah, I mean, Paige is mouth-watering gorgeous. I mean, Emma, I like the way both of them talk, because, I'm an American and I'm ignorant like that. So if you come from, like, Australian or England, all I want to do is give you a piece of paper and go, here, read this for me, will you?
Right,
Wow.
exactly.
But Paige's accent's much more softer. I think she is a lot hotter than Emma. And she's right when she announced, that a diva usually has the blonde hair and the nice tan. She's very pale, but I dig that too. Emma's just got, because Emma's a fan favorite, she's got the fans behind her, and I think that's how she got bumped up to that main roster a lot quicker. Paige absolutely deserves that spot as well. But everything, as you know, we took bets. Well, we did a little poll of who our predictions were.
On the Facebook group. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually in predictions now I'm 2-0 against Steve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're the Punxsutawney Phil of wrestling predictors. You got all three right that you called.
Yeah.
And I got them all wrong. So.
But I gave you my reasoning for that, and that was all logical reasoning.
Yeah.
I look at a picture as in where's it going down the road? Where do I think that story's, WWE will swerve you from time to time, but I look at that big picture where I think things are going, and that's how I actually make my decisions. The tag team match, I was really wanting to see the Ascension. I just kind of was a little bit confused, and I don't want to actually say anything against Too Cool because I love those guys. I'm friends with Scotty. Not so much Grandmaster Saxai, but I am friends with Scotty, and that's the first time I've seen him bald, and we both agreed on the same thing. That it's like, when the hell did Christopher Daniels get a job at NXT?
He looks so much like Christopher Daniels with that shaved head.
But no, I mean it was a really good match. I just would really I would have liked to have seen the Ascension against another young team that night, but nothing to complain about there. And then of course you had the Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze fiasco, and I understood what they were doing there because Alexander Rusev's coming up to the main roster. They were going to try to well, hopefully, it works, but I think they're going to try to ride back the shit out of him, make him look like a monster. And if they do it right, then no problems. The Ryback's problem was that he flipped from good guy to bad guy, from good guy to bad guy, it just lost complete interest, and the steam ran out. So hopefully Alexander Rusev works. We'll have to see what he's able to do, because if he just comes in and squashes people for a while, that really isn't going to be a test for him. So I understood they were just kind of pushing Alexander there, but I honestly believe that NXT owe me an Xavier Woods versus Tyler Breeze match, because I was invested in seeing that. I really wanted to see Tyler Breeze work. Dolph Ziggler's little cousin.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear your opinions on this, because like you haven't been a regular NXT viewer, and I have been for about the last 6 months or so, if not a little bit longer. And I've thought pretty much ever since I started watching the show that on a week-to-week basis, usually NXT is the best show that they do. Mm-hmm. I like it better than Raw. I like it better than SmackDown. I don't really watch Main Event anymore, but when I was watching Main Event, I thought NXT was better. And what I love about it is what I really liked about that Arrival show is I just like the way it's presented. I just think, for my taste, that's just the way pro wrestling is best presented. They had the behind the scenes interviews with the guys and the girls in the main matches. They had sort of like the backstage sit down interviews that were cut together into little packages, like with Paige and Emma talking about themselves and talking about the match and how it was important for them and why each one of them wanted to win, and they treated it like a sport. And I will always think, that's just my taste as a wrestling fan. No matter how goofy the product is, no matter how out there the gimmicks are, no matter how silly some of the guys are, no matter how many comedy matches they put in, or how crazy and just preposterous some of the moves are, if you treat it as though it's a sport while the show is on, that's the best way to handle it. If you constantly tell me that it's fake while I'm watching the show, it just bleeds all of the reasons I have to care about it away. When John Cena goes on like a talk show, let him talk about sports entertainment and performing and doing it for the people. Let him talk all he wants. Talk about it, how it's a work. It's all part of the show. That's great. Don't ever, 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 ever say that during the actual wrestling show. Like, kayfabe should be 100% maintained during the actual show. And for the most part, that NXT show, they did that. They treated them like athletes, like competitors. They didn't talk about how they were great performers. They talked about how they were wrestlers, and they were going in there and they were going to have a fight, and one person wanted to win and one person was going to have to lose. And when Sami Zayn talked about how, because they've kind of, when they talked about the Sami Zayn Antonio Cesaro matches that the two of them have had before this, they kind of crossed that line of where they talked about how, it was so great for Sami Zayn because he had these incredible matches. And as a wrestling fan, that's true, because the matches he had with Cesaro, even before their NXT match, were great and really made you sit up and take notice if you didn't know who El Generico was before. You saw Sami Zayn and you were like, oh, this guy can go. This is a great match. But he lost the matches. Mm-hmm. So within the storyline, he shouldn't be like that proud of it. It doesn't really make sense for him to say, well, I had a great match. I had a great performance against Antonio Cesaro. Yeah, but you lost. And with the Arrival build to their match at the Arrival show, they kind of got it back, and they made it more about, Sammy saying, "Oh, but I had that great match, but I lost, and that's been eating at me, and I need to avenge that loss, and I need to go in there against Cesaro and show him that I can beat him." And that's just basic pro wrestling logic. One guy wants to prove himself, wants to beat the other guy, and it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that in a lot of cases. And they went in with that simple premise: one guy wants to prove he's better than the other guy, and they tore the house down. They had an amazing match.
Yeah, I love how Triple H and Stephanie and even Shawn Michaels came out and presented stuff for NXT, but it's like, except for the exception of Shawn Michaels, who he is who he is. I mean, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon really kind of came out of their shells. They weren't acting like, the authority. They were showing. They honestly were showing a lot of respect toward the show they were about to present you, and I thought that was really good. The only thing about Stephanie, I do love Stephanie. She looked good in that dress that night. But she had, and when she smiles, there's this smile that she'll make, and it's like, I can't do it, but it's like when you see it, and you'll probably recognize it. It's like she just caught the whiff of somebody's fart.
I think I know exactly.
It's got a little cringe in this smile. It's like it looks like she's smelling something.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you mean. I think I know the look. Yeah, the cool thing about, and I mean, NXT is good for me, I think, as far as my attitude toward Triple H, because I try not to be a Triple H hater, and I try not to be someone who blames everything that happens on Raw that I don't like on Triple H. Because he is legitimately the COO of the company, and he does have a lot of stroke backstage, and he does have this reputation as being kind of a politician and being a guy who's willing to sort of do what's best for him as opposed to what's best for the product. But officially he's not on the creative team. He's not one of the writers. He's not one of the bookers. So it's not always right, I think, to just blame everything on him. And with something like NXT, which is basically his baby, he goes to he's at every single NXT taping. As far as I know, he's like the producer of every show. Like, he's producing the announcers. He's the guy who is in charge. He's like the Vince of NXT. That's his show, and he deserves a lot of credit, because NXT as a regular series is a great series, and that Arrival show was terrific. Was just how it should be done, I think. And I was thinking, as I was watching the show, I was thinking, man, if this is how Raw is in 10 years, when Vince is retired or dead and Triple H really is running the show, I could live with that. I don't know how much of that we actually have to look forward to in terms of presenting the product like that, but you have to give Triple H that much credit. NXT is his baby. That's his biggest accomplishment as an executive in the company at this point, and it is just awesome. I mean, it's a really, really great show.
Yeah, I know. While I was sitting there and Raw came on, and I was watching the first couple minutes and everything, I thought, there's this lingering thought in the back of my head going, when's the next NXT show going to be aired? Is that going to be on the network this week? Because I can't wait to see that. I'm thinking NXT because you're being handed the same old hoopla in the WWE for weeks. I mean, for quite a while now. John Cena really kind of cut that little promo last night and saying, you can understand the universe, they want change, and and the arena exploded when he said that. It's like, that's confirmation for you, buddy.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Raw last night, because whether you liked it or not, I guess you'd have to say it was an interesting show. It definitely is yet another example in a long line of recent examples of the crowd being just as much of a part of the show as anyone who actually worked on the show. How did you think they handled the CM Punk thing? Let's just start there, because that was the first segment. They have Paul Heyman come out to Punk's theme music, and at first it looks like he's going to sort of cut like a pro-Punk promo, and then he turns it and tries to sort of use that to put heat on the Brock Undertaker thing. I can sort of understand what they were trying to do, but how do you think that first segment and how they handled Punk in general last night came off?
Well, it's not original. They've done that before when people were expected. I think the fan base was really on the fence about whether CM Punk would actually show up or not, and so WWE took that, and they knew ahead of time whether or not he would show up. But it's like, that's what they are expecting, so let's just tease them with it, and then maybe
Yeah.
that'll help get the heat onto Paul Heyman's other guy, Brock Lesnar, when he goes against the Undertaker at WrestleMania. Um, but yeah, I dug Paul Heyman coming out, sitting down cross-legged in the ring, the way CM Punk used to do. He mimicked him, and he gave a pretty good backstory. But yeah, he quickly turned it into how the Undertaker attacked Brock Lesnar and wanted to introduce him. And it was actually nice to see Brock Lesnar take the mic last night, and it was very short, very brief, but effective. And I give
Yeah.
thumbs up to him. I just, again, the whole thing that sits wrong with that whole segment is they dogged out Mark Henry again. Again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, big time. I mean, even worse than they did the last two times
Mhm.
they fed him to Brock. I think the most frustrating thing about that is that we haven't even had a match. They haven't even I really think, and maybe a lot of it has to do with just Brock's contract and his schedule, maybe not wanting to use Brock too much. But I mean, I think if they had built a Mark Henry versus Brock Lesnar match like on a pay-per-view, you know,
I'm not sure what his contract negotiations are. I know it is limited to pay-per-views,
yeah,
and I don't know how many showings he has to do on TV, but I'm probably sure he's probably past that at this point. Just knowing he's just really just doing the job because he's going to have this big payday at WrestleMania.
right.
So you have to build up that match. So you need to be there, and we don't want that. We don't want this live from satellite bullshit, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's frustrating because Henry is, I mean, he's been with the company such a long time, and it feels like just these last couple years, he has had these periods where he's just gotten so hot and been so much fun to watch and such a great heel. And I know you're a big fan of his work,
Hmm.
and it's frustrating to see a guy like that who is he's finally sort of reached this level where he probably should have been a long time ago, given his size and his look and his intensity, and now he's just basically coming out to be cannon fodder for Brock. And it's not even his own program. It's just used to build up to the Undertaker's stuff. It's a little. I can understand why. If you're a big Mark Henry fan, why that would be a little frustrating,
Well, the
and why you
reason
think
I'm a
oh,
the reason I'm a Mark Henry fan, honestly, I'm gonna tell you this story. The reason I'm a Mark Henry fan, Mark Henry is not the type of wrestler that I really like in the ring. I don't. It's not the style that I really kind of enjoy watching. But one night I was sitting around, probably back in my early 20s when I first got into business, and I, was drinking a little bit, and me and a group of friends decided we're going to go over to County Market and play a little supermarket sweep. What the hell? We're going to go ahead and tear up the store a little bit. And so it was kind of late at night, and we went in, and I look over to my left by the milk department, and I see this huge beast of a man in a green suit. And I was like, holy crap, he turned around, and it was Mark Henry. And I was like, oh my God, it is Mark Henry in my grocery store. And I walked up and I talked to him for a little while, probably about 5-10 minutes. He gave me an autograph, and he was just so personable and so nice that left that mark on me. And I've always been a Mark Henry supporter, a Mark Henry fan since then, because he took that time, his own time, to recognize the fans and be really nice to us. He wasn't an arrogant prick like I know some people are.
yeah. I'm actually a more recent. I mean, I've never met him. It's cool that he is like that. For people who just run into him at a grocery store, it's really cool. Uh, I've never met him, and actually, until about 3 years ago, I wasn't a big Mark Henry fan either. I mean, I didn't have anything against him, but I like you said, he's not generally my style of wrestler. I usually like smaller guys who can do a little bit more mat wrestling and like the ring general type of guys. But man, when they pushed him as world champion on SmackDown a few years ago, and they just turned him into a monster. I don't know, like that won me over. I mean, he wasn't having like Flair versus Steamboat quality matches, but the matches he was having were good, like direct power matches, and he was looking impressive, and they were actually putting him over people, making him look like something, and they do that so rarely anymore. It's so rare to see them actually get behind somebody and put him over, like Randy Orton or the Big Show, or like their established top guys, and say, aha, now see, now here's another guy who's a top guy. And it's exciting to see that as a wrestling fan, to see them make somebody. And yes, I've been like a Mark Henry fan since then. Even though, really, I mean, if he doesn't generally line up with my normal taste as a wrestling fan, but I'm always like happy to see him. And I thought the angle he did with Cena last year, the fake retirement angle, was just outstanding.
The thing about Mark Henry is he doesn't have that many more years left in him. He is contemplating real retirement at this point. Yeah. And it's like he came off of his injury, and he just hasn't fared all that well since then. And I think, honestly, if he's going to be serious, he has set a date for his retirement, that it would be really nice for the WWE to give him one final push as a way of, thanking him for all the years of service that man's put in. So, but we'll see. Mark Henry's just really a patsy to sell the toughness of Mark Henry. Of Brock Lesnar. But I do say this is new rule. I'm stealing this from Bill Maher. New rule: the announcers can no longer use the words "world's strongest man" when it comes to Mark Henry, because you've put him down so many weeks at this point. So he's not looking like the world's strongest man anymore. So stop using that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because, Brock's pretty much used him like a tissue the last 3 times they've run into each other. So Brock beats the shit out of Mark Henry, apparently throws one of the commentators' monitors into the crowd and hits one of the fans. I read that after. Because I noticed that, because usually when they take the table apart, when you can tell like they're getting ready to put someone through the table, they still have those big bulky monitors that the commentators watch. And I guess because they're so durable, they wouldn't want to have like a little flat screen monitor out there, because I guess they're afraid it would just get smashed every week. And Brock took one of those monitors and just flung it behind him, and it went into the crowd, and apparently like it hit somebody. And but so they did that segment to put Brock over, and then after that was the tag team, the tag title match, where they finally, just on an episode of Raw, they put the tag titles on the Usos, and it's awesome that they put the titles on the Usos. I love the Usos, but it does feel a little bit like, well, why couldn't you do this at the pay-per-view, or wait till WrestleMania to do this? Why are we doing? I think maybe. Do you think maybe they did that because of the crowd? Because that was one of the few matches of the night, other than the Daniel Bryan stuff, where the crowd was really legitimately into the match, and they weren't just chanting for CM Punk the whole time.
Yeah, that's a possibility that they did that. They knew they were heading into Chi-Town. They had heard the rumors that the fans were planning to hijack Raw, and it was trending. It was trending on Twitter, hijack Raw.
Yeah.
So I think that they wanted to try to keep it upbeat and divert their attention a little bit. But I do agree with you that I don't believe championships should be defended on free TV. Honestly, I think that we should break it down to the old school clause that you at least have to defend your belt every 30 days, or it gets stripped and we move on to the next person, and you defend it on the next pay-per-view, and then it's till the next pay-per-view, because they seem to have one every month. But I do think that that's the way it should be. Make that big match the moneymaker match at WrestleMania. Build the storylines between your pay-per-views, and then give you the title match at WrestleMania or at a pay-per-view. But it was about time. The Usos have been teasing that spot for quite some time now, and really they're probably about the only viable team left to win those things, to take them from the Outlaws, because I don't see a whole. I don't think the El Luchadores, or whatever they're called, have a chance in hell. They're a gimmick. That's all they are. They're good, but I can't take them seriously. They're behind mask, and they're doing the gimmicky stuff with little Dorito or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And I like him, though. I do love a small guy that can move around like him. He is phenomenal. And it's like, too bad. Where the hell's Hornswoggle right now? Because you could have midget matches.
Exactly.
I love a midget match.
Well, it is, yeah. And there's like this whole history in wrestling of midget wrestling, and now they have whenever they have like little guys on the roster, they never ever have matches against each other. Um, but yeah, it's good for the Usos. I hope that it means something. You know, I mean, I hope that they're not just slapping the belt on them just for something to do. You know, I hope
We'll
that
see tomorrow night because they got a rematch, I think, on the main event.
on the live main event, yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, so then I guess the next match was the Cesaro versus Langston match, which was really just used to tease the Real Americans dissension. Swagger interfered and caused the DQ. Um, so I guess are we headed for? I guess they're doing like the slow burn breakup. I guess we're getting Swagger versus Cesaro at WrestleMania.
Yeah, at this point, I think this week we actually just didn't see one person get upset. I think we're starting to see equal footing of both people, just both Jack Swagger and Cesaro getting disgusted with one another and trying to. Honestly, I think this is a classic story of I'm better than you. I'm going to one up you. You know, you don't deserve these matches. I deserve the match against Big E Langston. So because I had that opportunity and I should still be have that opportunity, not you.
Yeah.
So I think this is just a great story of two good competitors that you will see face each other down the road, and at this point they're trying to one up each other, and it's exploding in their face. But good. I mean, what Cesaro did with Big E was good. I mean, that man is strong. I mean, he
Oh
picked him
yeah.
up from the air and just he just hauled him up in the air. It's like that is amazing how he can just stop someone's full momentum and then just power lift them. Wow.
Oh yeah, Cesaro is incredible. And Cesaro does a lot of those same, not the exact same spots, but the same sort of strength spots that Cena used to do, and still does sometimes. Where like he'll catch a guy in midair and throw him up on his shoulders, and move right into his finish. Uh, and Cesaro does the same sort of stuff, but it's almost more impressive because Cesaro doesn't have that big, bulky, like muscle-bound physique that Cena has. I mean, Cesaro is obviously in tremendous shape, but he doesn't look like a big, bulky bodybuilder. He looks like he's a lot trimmer. And so when he does these incredible strength spots, where he'll I love when he does that the superplex where he's on the second rope and the other guy is out on the apron
Mhm.
and he lifts him all the way up and over. And it really doesn't make any sense, like in terms of psychology. Like, why would you do that? But it's a really impressive spot to see him do that. And yeah, I get the feeling that the Swagger Cesaro match at WrestleMania probably won't get a whole lot of time. But man, I hope that they can come up with something, and whatever their time is, 8 minutes, however long they get for their match. I would love to see these guys just, because both Swagger and Cesaro, especially Cesaro, but Swagger as well, are capable of having a tremendous match, and their work with each other. I mean, you would expect that would be terrific.
Yeah, unfortunately, WWE don't know how. I mean, I talked about this the other night with a couple of friends of mine that I'm not invested at all in the tag team division, and I haven't been in a long, long time. It's just that every time it seemed like every time I felt like you're getting ready to do something that momentum is gaining in the tag team division, everything falls apart, and I'm right back
Yeah.
to where I started. So it's like I just am not invested or interested in. I want to see tag team matches, I really do, but I really don't think there's any use for a championship anymore because you're not pushing it very well, and
Yeah.
you're not that those belts don't hold the same prestige as they did back in the '80s when teams held them.
No, and a good way to sort of estimate the importance or the health, maybe I guess would be a better way of saying it, the health of the tag team division is just watch the show, look at sort of what's going on, and see if there are any tag team feuds other than involving the champions.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the big problems with that's been a problem with the tag team division since before the Attitude Era. I mean, WWE has had a weak tag team division for a long, long time. And that's one of the problems is that if there is like a tag team program running, it's usually the champions versus a challenger, and that's it. The other teams just aren't doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look back in the 80s and the early 90s when the tag team division in the WWF at the time was really, really strong, and I mean, just look at the match listings on old pay-per-views or old Saturday night's main events.
Yeah, the
Look at
Rockers
how
versus
many,
the Twin Towers.
yeah, look at how many tag team matches there were. I mean, I was actually looking, because, the WWE Network, you can watch all the old pay-per-views. I was looking at the match listing for Starrcade '88. And the first 3 matches on the show were tag team matches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unheard of today. I mean, that is, unless there's like a special attraction match where it's like a bunch of main eventers teaming up to have a tag team match and they're not really regular parts of a team. The only tag team match on a show is the tag team title match, and a lot of times that gets put on the pre-show. Like the tag division is so weak compared to how it was back in the day. It's kind of sad, especially if you love tag team wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's great psychology in tag team wrestling, and I miss that. That's why I have had no problems with teams like Too Cool and the Outlaws making appearances or coming back, because it brings a little bit of that old school mentality to what they've learned. Because they're my age or a little bit older, so they know what I know when it comes to old wrestling psychology, and it's great to see some of that again. Everybody now is just a cookie cutter wrestler. You're going to the developmental center. You're going to have your own special moves, but everybody can do that move, I'm sure. There's just one or two in between that'll make you special, but for the most part, you're a cookie cutter wrestler in the WWE.
Yeah, and a good tag team match is such a great, like, it's a great way of, not just if you're a longtime fan. There's nothing like a really great, well-worked tag team match. It's great to show to other people too. Like a lot of times when you're a wrestling fan and you're talking to people who aren't wrestling fans, and they ask you to explain, like, what do you mean by match psychology? Like a really good example of just what you mean by match psychology is show them a good tag team match.
Mm-hmm.
Let them see the heels isolate the babyface and keep him from making the tag. I mean, that's like really one of the most obvious examples, but one of the most effective examples too. You get one of the good guys, you isolate him in the ring, you have him tease trying to tag his partner, but he never quite makes it. Meanwhile, the good guys the bad guys, the heels, bully him and team up on him and knock him around for a while. I mean, that's like basic wrestling psychology.
Yep.
And it works.
A good one is the bad guy goes over to his opponent's corner and he hits the guy who's not in the ring at the time, and that'll draw him into anger, and he'll try to get in the ring, and that'll bring the referee to his corner, like, yeah, no, back up, you can't come in the ring, you didn't tag, can't come. While they're just tag teaming him right behind the referee, and which I love that gimmick, because you can hear that stomping going on back there. You can hear all the noise of them pounding, but that doesn't divert the referee's attention.
Right. As the ref, you have to get that guy out of the ring. Yeah.
But it's all legit.
So,
I mean, I'm legitimately my attention is diverted. So I mean, I have no idea what's going on back there. I'm trying to do my job.
And if and if you don't see it, you can't call it.
That's right. Didn't happen.
Can't disqualify somebody for something you didn't see.
I don't care what all the fans are screaming.
Right, they're not reffing this match.
That's right.
Who's reffing this match? Oh yeah, but and it just, there's so much like old school heel stuff that you see in like old school tag team matches. It's just a lost art. Like all the, like you said about hitting the guy on the apron to distract the ref, and there's all these other like little heel tactics to distract the referee. I mean, I remember seeing matches when I was growing up where like the heel would ask the referee to check how much time was left in the match. Mm-hmm. And the referee would like turn and ask the timekeeper, and while he had his back turned, he'd like pull something out of his tights or slap on a chokehold or do something illegal to get the fans going crazy. I mean, you never see that shit anymore, and that is such like classic wrestling stuff that I wish you would see more of. But so let's move on with Raw here. After the Cesaro Langston match, there was the rematch of the Shield Wyatt 6-man from the pay-per-view. This one wasn't quite as good as that one on the pay-per-view, but it was still a really good match. mostly used it built up to the I guess the prelude to the Shield breakup, where Seth Rollins, actually it turns out Seth Rollins wound up being the guy
Yeah,
to
I didn't see
break
that
up.
coming at all. It's like,
No.
wow, that's a good swerve, WWE, because everybody's expecting Roman Reigns to be the guy, and you made Seth Rollins walk up. No one saw that one coming. That was genius.
Yeah, and I like the way like it wasn't really a full, like, you could tell that Rollins was supposed to be conflicted about it,
Hmm.
because he kind of just hung out on the ramp and watched the rest of the match, and they really, made sure they got lots of camera shots of Seth Rollins looking really sort of conflicted about, what did I do, or he didn't look happy about it, he didn't look like smug and heelish about it, he was just sort of, you know uh, contemplating what he had done. And the match was good. I liked the fact that the match didn't end right as soon as Seth walked out. The match went on for a little while. I always
Did
like
you
stuff
see a
like
stiff
that.
spot in that match anywhere?
Which one are you? Which spot are you thinking of?
Well, there's a spot where, and I'd have to rewatch it, but I guess Bray Wyatt and Dean Ambrose, maybe I guess Bray was a little, or Dean was being a little stiff or something, and Bray come flying across the ring, and it looked like he legitimately hit him, and then Dean just shoved him. Gave him a push. It wasn't a fighter. He just pushed him and, got him out of the
Oh.
ring. It's like, I swear, I'm going to have to rewatch it and slow it down, but it looks like they got a little overzealous and stiffed each other a couple times.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I actually, I didn't notice that. I mean, I noticed. I think I remember the spot you're talking about, but I must have. Maybe I was talking to Ashley or looking away, but I missed the like Dean shoving him and looking pissed off. I didn't catch that. But well, they're get they're getting a little hot at each other, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, after that moment,
Um,
it seemed like it lit a fire up under everybody's ass, and then that thing just got that match got pretty intense after that moment. It's like everybody was just starting to
yeah,
get angry, and they turned up the heat a little
yeah,
bit. I liked it, but yeah, it's a top
and
match. I don't get pay-per-views, and I will now for $9.99 a month. But I don't get pay-per-views, so I didn't see the Elimination Chamber. So I don't know the match you're talking about, but this one was absolutely great, and the fans were loving it too.
yeah, and Roman Reigns was Superman punching everybody in sight.
Yeah, it was.
He
I'm more
just
impressed by
Superman
that
punched
kick.
everybody.
I'm more impressed
Oh
by the kick
yeah,
he does from the floor.
yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's impressive.
Oh, yeah, and that was well used in this match too. When Dean kind of had Bray over on the ropes and he sort of called Roman over to hit him with it. That was, I don't think I've ever seen him use it quite that way before, or it was like almost like a double team spot.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so we got the Shield breakup is progressing, um, and then there was a backstage promo with Batista, which I thought was probably, it wasn't great, but it was probably the best promo he's cut since he's been back, because there was actually something for him to be talking about. Like, there was a direction and a purpose to what he was saying, which just, I mean, it seems like they would have come up with something like that before they brought the guy back in. Now he's been back for a month, and it's like they finally have something for Batista to do. And I thought it was a decent promo talking about how, Daniel Bryan isn't a guy like him, and, Daniel Bryan's just some little sawed-off average guy, and men like Batista are the real wrestlers, and, a guy like Daniel Bryan is never going to beat a guy like Batista. So he's basically a heel now,
Yeah.
through and through.
Called us comic book fans.
Which means that, yeah. Oh, yeah, we read too many comic books.
Hmm.
Which is great. I think it's fine. I mean, if the creative in the company wasn't such a mess, I would think that was awesome. I love Batista as a heel. Yeah, troll the fans, call us a bunch of geeks, call us a bunch of fucking comic nerds, and then have Daniel Bryan kick his teeth in and win the match. That's perfect. But who knows if that's ever going to happen?
Yeah, to me, I think it's a rule that if you mess something up, that you don't change it to a point where the fans are going to notice it. Batista came back. They wanted him to be that good guy, wanted fans to be excited, but, a lot of fans just see through the veil. They see Triple H as kind of the head of things, and you got Batista coming back. You got and they're purposely doing this, people. They're purposely making Triple H look like he's on power. He's hungry for power. So that's why you got Batista coming back. That's why Randy Orton's the face of the WWE. That's why the Outlaws are the tag team champions, and that's why Shawn Michaels seems to just never freaking retire. Go away. Gets a spot on NXT, one of the best shows of the week. You put Shawn Michaels in the main. Well, I understood. He wants to claim he did the first ladder match. Claim that him and Razor did the first ladder match, which is bullshit. But that's a different story. Batista, I think if he just accepts the fact that nobody likes him, and stays as a heel. It's like I love how he mentioned that we watch too many movies. So I as much as it's going to kick me to say this, I ask you fans, we go see too many movies, right? So when August rolls around and the Guardians of the Galaxy finally comes out, which Batista's in, don't go see it.
Yep.
Because we just go see too many movies. So just to kind of shove it right in Batista's face. Shove it right in Batista's face, we're not going to go see your movie.
Yeah.
Oh, my. So.
And, I mean, I like Batista as a heel. I thought he worked much better as a heel than as a babyface. The last time he was, before he left, he was a heel right before he left the company 4 years ago. And I thought that was some of the best work he had ever done. As a babyface, I didn't think he was terrible, but he's just another big muscular guy. He had he showed some personality sometimes. He had some decent charisma. Like I could tell why they wanted to push him, but like you, Doc, I'm it's not my favorite type of wrestler. And if I were going to make a list of like my favorite wrestlers from the last 10 years, Batista probably wouldn't be very high on the list. But I don't hate the guy. I wasn't like upset that he was coming back. But they just had nothing for him. I mean, they just had him. Basically, they seem to have thought, well, we'll just bring Batista back, and everybody will automatically love the fact that he's here, and everybody will think it's so awesome that he wins the Royal Rumble, and he'll wrestle Randy Orton in the main event of WrestleMania, and everybody loves Batista so much that we won't even have to write anything for him or come up with any sort of a motivation or whatever. We'll just show them Batista, and everybody will love it. Like, it seems like that was the plan.
Yeah,
and
I'm
that
not
just
sure what the
boggles
plan
my
is
mind.
right now. Because right now you have two heels going up against each other for the title. Something has got to give there, because that just doesn't make sense to me.
No, and I read on the internet, and as always is the disclaimer, who knows whether the internet rumors are true or not, because there were rumors the last couple of days that Punk was definitely going to be at Raw, and he wasn't, and now they say like, well, that was never on the plan. Punk was never supposed to be there. So internet wrestling rumors should always be taken with a grain of salt. But this one actually makes sense, because as you say, now officially the two guys fighting in the main event are both heels. And the rumor is that WWE wants to add a third guy to that match, but they don't know who it's going to be. Now, if Punk doesn't come back and Daniel Bryan is wrestling Triple H, I have no idea who that third person could be. I mean, I cannot think of a single other person on the roster that would be suitable for that part, because Cena's working with Wyatt. Everybody else, it seems like, has shit. You would think that they have shit to do at Mania. So if it's not Daniel Bryan and it's not CM Punk, who the fuck is the third guy? And it would have to be a babyface. Why would you put a third heel in a triple threat match? So it has to be a babyface. I mean, who the fuck could it possibly be? Maybe they're going to somehow try to turn this Bryan versus Triple H thing toward putting him in the main event. But if that's what their plan is, they're going. Their storytelling is just so confused and so haphazard. They change direction so many times that it's just a mess. Their creative in the main event has been just such a mess ever since it became obvious that nobody wanted to see Batista versus Orton. It seems like they've been rewriting the show every week, and you just have no idea where. I don't even know if they know where they're going. You know?
I think they're pretty solid, and they should know where the fans sit by now. You know, they want CM Punk, but unfortunately, you can't always get what you want because CM Punk's his own individual, and you can't force him down that ramp. So it's not the
Right.
WWE's fault if he doesn't walk down there. WWE, I'm sure, would love to have CM Punk back because fans are chanting for him. You know, I would imagine they would let bygones be bygones. People have done worse shit than just walk off the set to the
Right.
WWE. I mean, Ultimate Warrior's getting a spot in the Hall of Fame and shit. He's been bad mouthing the
Yeah.
WWE. Same with Bruno Sammartino. Yeah, but
Oh,
they've been forgiven.
yeah. And the thing is like, I mean, you can understand why maybe people might hold a grudge against someone like Punk for walking out, and then if he did come back, if they plugged him into a main event slot, you know, I can understand maybe people might think like, well, I was here, I never left work, I never walked out on my contract, and you know, I'm working the pre-show against somebody. I can understand that. But at the same time, the problem with this company for the last 6 months at least, and probably actually if we think about it, probably for a lot longer, is that they just refuse to take advantage of they refuse to strike while the iron is hot, basically. It's been obvious that Daniel Bryan is the guy that people want, and they just will not put him over. They just will not make him the top guy. And Triple H can, you know, cut his heel promo about how nobody ever gets held back, and you know, people don't succeed or fail, you know, because they're held down. It's because you know, they work hard and they earn their spots. And I'm willing to accept that that's probably true most of the time. It's not that Daniel Bryan's being held back. It's certainly not that he's being buried. He's the star of the show, but they're just not going all the way with him. And people want them to go all the way with him, and they just won't do it.
Yeah, I think they're missing a golden opportunity here because they're sitting on something very similar to what happened back in the 90s, and that's when Stone Cold Steve Austin was coming into his zone. He's becoming Stone Cold, and Vince McMahon absolutely hated his persona, just did not think he represented the WWE whatsoever. So kind of same storyline there.
Yeah.
But Stone Cold, no matter what happened, he got that belt. And then it really heated up because Vince didn't want him to have the belt. And then you go into your fights back and forth. So Triple H is sitting on a gold mine here because the fan base right now is just as hot as it was going, what, you know, with Stone Cold Steve Austin and their 316 shirts. Granted, the crowds aren't quite as big as they used to be, but the mass of the crowd, no matter what, is solidly behind Daniel Bryan. So you're sitting on an opportunity here to kind of repeat history in a different way, because Vince McMahon and Stone Cold aren't the players anymore, and you can just tweak it a little bit, but you can use the same premise and make Daniel he is a bona fide star. He's showcased every week, so unlike some wrestlers, so he's got his spot. That's great. That whole Daniel Bryan Triple H thing, to me it was just, you know, Daniel Bryan trying to get the fans solidly behind the match because that's not what they want, and so he's just trying to do his part to get them behind him no matter what. And they'll be behind him no matter if he wrestles Triple H. They're still going to be behind him throughout the whole match. It's going to happen. So it really doesn't matter where he is on the card, even though they want him in the title spot, because wherever he shows up, he's going to get the same crowd reaction, bar none.
Yeah, and I mean, and really, you know, they've said, Mick Foley says that Mick Foley has been a really vocal critic of the creative direction of the company, and Mick Foley said that he took his concerns to multiple members of the creative team, and he talked to Vince about it, and he talked to Stephanie about it, and he talked to Triple H about it, and Mick Foley says the answer that he got was basically, you know, just wait until you see where we're going with this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is their standard answer to anytime anybody criticizes creative. Their answer is always, well, you haven't seen where we're going with this yet. Okay. If where they're going is that Daniel Bryan kicks the shit out of Triple H, and Triple H takes it like Vince McMahon took it when Steve Austin beat the shit out of him. I mean, that's what. When people talk about like Vince McMahon, and they show Vince McMahon respect for getting physical in his wrestling matches, which a lot of people do, it's not because Vince was a good worker, because Vince was a terrible worker. But Vince gave the people what they wanted. He knew that the people wanted to see Steve Austin kick the shit out of him, and whenever they got physical, that's what happened. Steve Austin kicked the shit out of him and made him look like, just completely helpless. And I think we just don't expect to see that happen with Triple H, because Triple H is, he thinks he's Ric Flair. I think he's probably closer to Ronnie Garvin, but he thinks he's Ric Flair. No disrespect to Ronnie Garvin, by the way. He was a great wrestler. But so he's just never going to be that guy who will go in and just make the babyface look like $1 million. I mean, I'm sure if him and Bryan have a match, it'll be a good match, because Triple H can still go, and Bryan is one of the best in the world, and it'll be a good match. But, I think what people really want to see in terms of a payoff of Bryan and Triple H, they don't necessarily want to see the two of them put on a classic match. They want Bryan to just kick the shit out of him. Like, that's the release that fans need, to see Bryan kick the shit out of Triple H and just leave him laying, kick his head in, as he used to say in Ring of Honor, and then win the title.
Yeah.
That's the payoff. And yeah,
I think
you're right.
I think the one saving grace for this match would be to make that stipulation as we go along to when Triple H finally agrees to wrestle Bryan. And then you add a stipulation. Well, if you beat me, if you can beat me, which I seriously doubt you're going to be able to beat me, but if you can beat me, sure. Because then Triple H can just play off. He's got nothing to worry about. He'll kick Daniel Bryan's ass all over the arena. So you just throw that little stipulation in it. That way the fans get happy, knowing that Daniel Bryan, if he wins, will get that title shot. At least that is a possible future. That's already signed now, that he'll get a title shot. And that will actually get people more invested in that match. You've got to add a stipulation, because if it's just a wrestling match, or even a street fight or a brawl, no DQ, who gives a crap? You got to add something special into that match for fans to be invested. Right now, they're just not. No matter how hard Daniel Bryan tries to get them behind him, and they're just behind Daniel Bryan, not the match.
Yeah, and they would chant no when Bryan would say, I want to, Triple H, give these people what they want. They want Daniel Bryan versus Triple H at WrestleMania. I mean, Bryan is trying everything he can to turn that support for him into support for that match. He's doing his job as a wrestler, trying to push the match. And the people, that's just not what the people want to see. They chant yes for everything Daniel Bryan does. But when he was trying to turn them to support the match with Triple H, they were yelling no. People just don't want to see that. And if they don't have the message by now, I don't know how they're going to get the message. What people want is, like, imagine if WrestleMania 14 had been Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels defending the title against a completely different person in the main event. That's not what people wanted. People wanted Austin to win the title. People didn't want to see. People wanted to see Austin kick the shit out of Vince McMahon. That they wanted to see that very badly, but that wasn't the payoff. The payoff was Austin winning the title. And the same thing with Daniel Bryan. Yeah, sure. Book Bryan versus Triple H next month. Book Bryan versus Kane next month. We would love to see that match. Put the title on him. That's what people want. And I don't know. Like I say, I hope that Mania turns around. I hope that it's a good show. I love to see things like when the Usos won the titles last night and the fans were cheering. They were really excited. I mean, I like to see the show go the way it's supposed to go. And I like to see the fans get into it and be happy about what's happening and cheer the guys and react the way the wrestlers in the ring are trying to get them to react. That I love to see that. It's not, it's not preferable to just see the crowd turning on the show. The reason that the crowd turns on the show is because the show is not being done the way they've told the company they want the show to go. So who knows? Hopefully WrestleMania has a happy ending and it doesn't end with fucking Batista versus Randy Orton. Let's go ahead and just skip most of the rest of Raw, because there was the Christian versus Sheamus rematch. There was a mixed tag between Santino and Emma and Fandango and Summer Rae. There was a Divas match that for some reason was left in my Hulu version, even though a lot of this other stuff we've been talking about was cut out. And then there was the Bryan versus Triple H thing that we've already sort of talked about, the promo. And then the main event was actually Bryan versus Batista. Talk about giving away pay-per-view matches for free on TV.
Hmm.
It wasn't a title match, but it could just as well have been, given the position of both guys. Bryan versus Batista in the main event. It ends in a big DQ clusterfuck finish where Bryan gets put down by Kane and Triple H, and that's the end of the show. So I can't imagine the crowd being that happy with that with that ending of Raw, where they file into the arena that night, hoping, maybe some of them still kind of hoping to see CM Punk, but at least hoping that they'll see Daniel Bryan do some cool shit. And he has an okay match with Batista that ends with a DQ, and then the show ends with Triple H standing over Daniel Bryan. And, again, if I had more faith in creative, I would say, well, that's good. The heel is putting the babyface down, and the babyface is going to rise up and kick the heel's ass. But given the way the show's been booked the last 6 months, like, you just can't assume that. Who knows? They might, 10 years ago, I thought that Booker T was going to win the world title from Triple H at WrestleMania because Triple H was working as like a racist, arrogant heel, and the motherfucker won the match.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what's going to happen?
They're doing good things with Bray Wyatt though, because
yes,
he cranks out yet another excellent A+ promo against John Cena, and I
agree completely.
I can only hope that they actually cash in on his promo someday by, after a couple years, if he keeps on doing it, put out a book, the Bray Wyatt quotes. Put them on transcripts so you can read them. It's like, wow, that's amazing. The man can just, his ability to use his words, unlike me, his ability to use his words and theatrical ability is uncanny. I haven't really seen anything like that since the days of Jake the Snake. Dean Ambrose is pretty good too. Yeah, Dean Ambrose is pretty good too. Bray Wyatt is better, I think, and Jake, to me, was the all-time talker.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about Jake too, because like Jake, Bray is just so dialed in on that gimmick and that voice and that persona and everything, and it almost doesn't even matter what he says, because it just sounds so perfect, and the way his voice just rises up and then comes back down. He's got that so perfect. And the promo last night was just awesome. The Cena promo, where he talked about how Cena is an old thoroughbred racehorse, and he's worried about he's not just worried about winning the race now. He's worried about that day when he's going to be lying on a slab in the back of the barn, and I mean, just awesome stuff. Yeah, and
I also give 2 thumbs up. I give 2 thumbs up to the Alberto Del Rio and Dolph Ziggler match. I thought that was really good. They threw Dolph Ziggler a bone last night, and that was great. And we'll probably should mention the fact that they're going to be honoring Mr. Paul Bearer, Mr. Percy Pringle, in the Hall of Fame this year.
Yes, which is nice, because he deserves it, and it's always nice to see the old school managers get their due credit, because Percy Pringle, and then eventually became Paul Bearer, with how most people know him. Great manager. Mm-hmm. And if you look at how he was, oh man, he was so great as Paul Bearer. And then if you look at his work as Percy, like in Texas and Memphis, and before he ever became Paul Bearer, totally different style, totally different voice, but also just a great old school heel manager. And good to see him going into the Hall of Fame. It's a pretty decent Hall of Fame class this year. I know you're so not crazy about Lita getting in, but Jake's getting in, which is all I fucking care about. Warrior's getting in, which will be like the big headliner. Paul Bearer's getting in. That's a good Hall of Fame class.
So far, they should probably announce about 4 more, and then that'll be that. So they usually put about 8 people in every year.
Yeah. So let's do our Legend of the Week. I know we're running a little bit over time, but the Legend of the Week this week is really important, because unfortunately the guy just died yesterday. Mm-hmm. But he's one of the all-time great performers and one of the great trainers in the history of pro wrestling, Billy Robinson. You want to talk a little bit about Shooter Billy Robinson?
Sure. Let me go over my notes.
Yeah, go for it.
I like
I
to
mean,
call it.
I got some stuff to say about him too, but go for
Yeah,
it.
I call it Wikipedia. I actually
My
know
carefully
Billy
prepared
Robinson.
notes.
Yeah, I really only know Billy Robinson because I own the movie The Wrestler, and I know that Billy Robinson
Yes.
played in that film. So
Yes.
it was really cool. I actually had to go learn a little bit more about him because he's a little bit out of my era before I came into wrestling. But I always knew him as I heard the name, and every time I hear his name, I always go, the Shooter. He's the Shooter, because he'd get in there and he knew that art of catch wrestling, where if he wanted to hurt you, the
Oh
man
yeah.
could hurt you. If the promoter wanted you hurt, they'd send Billy Robinson out to do it because the man could do it legitimately. I know he trained in what was called, since we just talked about Jake the Snake, he trained in the Snake Pit.
The Snake Pit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a training center, and I think it was Billy Riley who was his trainer. More stuff here. He wrestled for Vern Gagne's AWA back in, let me check that, back in the 1970s, and he was known for hiring real deal. It's like known for hiring the real deals in wrestling. Billy Robinson was also the AWA British Empire Heavyweight Champion. He defended the title in both the United States and Canada, winning on 3 separate occasions. He was in, like I said, he was in The Wrestler alongside with Vern Gagne and Ed Asner. And I should mention that he is British. That's very important. He's British, Manchester, England.
Yeah, and the Snake Pit where he trained is in a town near Manchester called Wigan,
Mhm.
that is like legendary for producing great British wrestlers and shooters. He's in addition to his own great career as a wrestler, of course, Billy Robinson, he helped to train Ric Flair. He helped to train James Maritato, who worked as Little Guido in ECW, and is just, I've never really seen his stuff from England. He wrestled in England. He wrestled in Japan. I've never seen any of his Japan stuff. He's like a legend in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Well, his match with Antonio Inoki, it's billed as like one of the best matches of all time. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I kind of want to.
maybe.
I kind of want to look up some Billy Robinson stuff too. Yeah, and because I know him, and I'm not like super familiar with him. I've seen a few of his AWA matches, because he was like in the 70s and the early 80s, before Vern Gagne finally retired, and pushed other people on the top of the AWA. The main event card of the AWA for years, it was Vern Gagne, and if he wasn't wrestling Nick Bockwinkel, he was wrestling Billy Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those were the top 2 challengers to Vern Gagne for like basically the entire decade of the 1970s in the AWA. And that's I mean, looking at it as a sort of an uneducated fan, that seems like that might have been kind of boring, and eventually it did get boring, but for a while, for a huge long run, that company was incredibly successful in that territory. I mean, they were just the AWA wrestlers in the Midwest, in Minnesota, and even like out in San Francisco where they had TV. They were crazy over. They were so popular, and that Billy Robinson versus Vern Gagne program, which just went on forever, and they wrestled each other so many times, was huge box office for the AWA. And Billy Robinson he trained Ric Flair. He trained so many. He was like one of Vern's, stallions,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in The Wrestler, which is another thing that people might know him from. He was sort of like the big opponent for Vern Gagne in The Wrestler. Just one of the all-time greats, and sad that he passed away, but
Yeah.
hell of a wrestler.
Yeah, well, it's sad that he passed away, but as a lot of wrestlers do, they tend to die in shady ways or way too young. The man was 75, so I think that he was able to live a pretty full life with a lot of accolades to his name. For those of you who are only aware, like you're like a closet, used to be like just a closet WWF fan. Some of his WWF accomplishments: he had won the Intercontinental title from Dino Bravo. He's been in tag team champions with Pierre Mad Dog Leber, whatever his name is. I can't pronounce his last name. It's It's Montreal. It's French Canadian, and yeah, sacre bleu is the
One of
French.
those, yeah.
Best known for a 60-minute Broadway with Bob Backlund for the WWF title.
Yeah, yeah, and I noticed that too when I was looking up some Billy Robinson stuff. I noticed that he did an hour Broadway with Bob Backlund. I would like to see that.
That shit's not easy. That
No.
shit is, especially back then, you know. And I had posted like and if you don't know, I do have a group on my Facebook page, and you can look me up, Doc Gregory, and you can friend me. But I have a group on my Facebook page called the WWE Network Fans. And if you want to be added to that, we get together, and anybody who's watching the network, you can come in. We shoot the shit about wrestling, and you can throw your ideas down there, and some of them we might cover here on the show. But I had talked about. I lost my train of thought. Damn it.
We were talking about an hour Broadway, I think.
Yeah, I was talking about the hour Broadway.
And then
yeah.
Thank
Thank you. There was a question about if you could. One of my friends posted a question about if you could pick any wrestler to go against any wrestler who've never faced each other before. Who would you choose? Yeah. And you had commented this. I think I really liked the fact that you said CM Punk versus Macho Man, and that I'm invested in that. I would have loved to have seen that, especially because CM Punk does pay respect to the Macho Man with some of his moves. I had stated that I just want to see any old school wrestler, preferably trained in the South, go against this modern crop of wrestlers so they can actually show them really what an ass kicking is, because they got it pretty easy these days. Granted, they wrestle a lot more because they travel a lot. Their schedule's a lot more rigorous, but they're about as light as freaking possible. If you ever get in the ring with a Southern trained wrestler, you will know it. They're about one step down. Yeah. They're about one step down tough on the wrestlers list, right next to Samoans.
Yeah, and you know, it seems like the wrestling style kind of gets a little bit lighter with each generation, because I remember hearing, and I eventually, you can find this match on YouTube. I saw it for the first time just within the last year or so, and it's like a legendary match if you know about like the history of the Road Warriors. And the Road Warriors had a reputation, especially in the early days, for being really stiff and kind of dangerous. And the Road Warriors had a match in the AWA. It was a tag team match against one, and I can't remember. It might have been the Crusher, and Larry Hennig. I know that Larry Hennig was one of the other guys. I don't know if it was the Crusher, but it was Larry Hennig and some other like old school wrestler from the 60s and 70s. And Hawk and Animal were still relatively young. And I don't know if Hennig and his partner just wanted to teach him a lesson, to sort of, teach him how the business was, or if they took some liberties with him, or they did something kind of reckless. But this match, it's basically just Larry Hennig, and I'll just say it was the Crusher, I can't remember, just beating the piss out of the Road Warriors. I mean, fucking stiffing the shit out of them for the entire match. Just unloading on them, and it is something to see these two beefy, old, fucking tough as nails, ugly as shit, like old school wrestlers from back in the day, when wrestlers all looked like guys that worked in coal mines or junkyards. They were not like attractive guys for the most part, and just beating the fucking shit out of the Road Warriors. That's old school wrestling for you. Where, if it looks like he's really hitting him, he probably is.
Yeah, that's what I said about that Bray Wyatt incident. Like, it looked like he cocked Dean Ambrose a good one. I love Larry the Axe Hennig. His neck was as thick as Hulk Hogan's arm. 24-inch neck on that man. Impressive. Kurt Hennig's daddy, that's Curtis Axel's granddaddy. And that's how Curtis Axel gets his name. It's a mix between Kurt Hennig and Larry the Axe Hennig, his grandfather. That's where Curtis's name comes from.
And Larry the Axe is somebody we should talk about as a Legend of the Week one time, because he is just one of the all-time great old school wrestlers, and still around, thankfully. Well, what do you say we wrap this up for this week, Doc?
Oh hell yeah! I got a steak dinner waiting for me tonight, and I'm gonna hit that real good, and I'm gonna pop my teeth out and chew on that so I can savor the flavoring.
Sounds like you got your evening all planned out then.
I do. Oh, did you see my new shirt, Dana? Dana special ordered this shirt. This is awesome. Check this out. I'm gonna take these off so you can see this. Let me see. It's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy shirt. It says the meaning of life 42.
That's awesome. I love that.
She had that custom made, ordered it for Valentine's Day, but it didn't get here till today.
Wow.
Yeah, but I love it. I love it
That's
because
awesome.
that's my favorite book. I love The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I thought I'd share it with you. I thought you would appreciate the shirt.
Yeah, I love the Hitchhiker's Guide. I love the Hitchhiker's Guide. I have the I don't have I'm not a completist, but I do happen to have the original BBC TV series
Hmm.
of Hitchhiker's Guide. And I love that. I love every single episode of that. Um,
So yeah, let's wrap
yeah.
this baby up for the day.
Yeah, we'll be back next week to do this again for you guys. Thank you for watching. We're on the road to WrestleMania, so it's interesting to watch and see them see how often they'll change their minds about what the
Hmm.
main event of WrestleMania is going to be before we actually get there. Hopefully, it'll be a good show. And we've always got NXT, even if Raw ends up taking a shit. We've always got NXT. Actually, NXT should be good this week. I haven't watched it this week yet, but NXT should be good with Neville winning the title and everything. It should be an interesting show.
Whenever you watch Raw, I think of the words of Yoda when he thought that Luke was the only Jedi, and he says, "No, there is another." That's NXT.
Exactly. Exactly. Just hold on. They're coming. They've got really great talent. They're coming. All right. See you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you
Thank you.
next week.
Take care.